gonna give them a vision of the world the way it really is.
Welcome back to the third episode where I, Ken LaCorte, and John Moody, both senior executives from Fox, since removed, watched the third episode of Loudest Voice, Showtime series on Roger Ailes and the Fox News Channel. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. John is in New York. I normally start with you, John, but let me go ahead and start on this one myself. This episode kind of sucked. I mean, just as a viewer and as a watcher, it bored the heck out of me. I found that my time at Fox was more interesting than this episode was. When somebody asked me to say what was the plot afterwards, because I saw this a few days back, I had a hard time kind of remembering what the plot was. From a TV aspect, what do you think they're doing? What's going on here? And did you have the same reaction?
Yeah, I certainly did, Ken. A darker storyline and deeper reliance on guesswork. They're making it up as they go along.
Do you think, I mean, why didn't they make anything interesting happen here? I mean, it was all kind of meetings and this. Is this the setup of people getting more evil, or what do you think the deal is?
Well, I think they wanted to reserve enough time for some really yucky scenes between the character that plays Roger and the character that plays Laurie Luhn.
Which we saw with the camera and the some of the sex scenes.
They didn't skimp on that at all, and I suspect that's going to be an even bigger portion of the next coming couple of episodes.
All right. You know, maybe it was because the body on that gal was so amazing that they just need to get her in every few episodes to look. Game of Thrones had a lot of female bare females in it, which helped make that. So maybe they're hoping that this saves that.
Maybe, and of course you're not even counting Roger's body.
Jesus Christ. All right, moving on. So first let's talk about, I mean, the first episode was they weren't kicking people too much in the head. This one, there just seemed to be a lot of just making crap up. From the very intro scene, Roger's son walks into the back while Roger's watching TV. He's the young boy with the broken toy, and he's going to hear Dad, but Dad is fixated on Barack Obama, who's giving a speech online. Now, the irony of that is, how many meetings were you in where Zach called or had a problem where Roger made 12 senior executives sit in a room for 20 minutes while he took care of Zach? The concept of him ignoring Zach Ailes was stupid.
I mean, that's exactly right. Those were his priorities: son, wife, family, and then Fox News. He doted on Zach and would have always interrupted a meeting to take a phone call from him. Yeah.
They also had another weird scene with Zach Ailes where, after Roger showed him and explained, don't drop the flag and let it go, the kid takes the flag down at their house, dips it in mud, and then kind of freaks out a little bit and tosses it to the Hispanic maid. And it was like, why do we think a show like this decided to kick some teenager?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're kicking the teenager, and they're also doing what so much of the mainstream media does, which is dragging America through the mud.
Yeah. Ooh. You didn't even know this line was coming up. Very good. Very good. Okay, so one other big scene in this, and maybe there were multiple times that he was going to meet with Barack Obama, maybe not. I don't think so. In our recollection, in my recollection from what people who were around there was a meeting in the midst of the political campaign with Roger and Barack Obama. And they'd met in this big, it was kind of like an empty, not a hotel room, but a hotel kind of ballroom before or after some type of an event. And I'd heard from numerous people about that conversation, and that they were literally, it was kind of odd because they were sitting kind of in just two plain chairs across from each other. But in the Loudest Voice, that takes on a completely different thing. What did you see?
I guess the implication is they wanted to show that Roger was being cut out of access to Obama because Rupert Murdoch wanted his own channel of communication with the candidate and future president. I don't know if that happened. I don't know that it didn't happen. I do know that Roger did have a meeting with Barack Obama while he was running for president. To the best of my understanding, the meeting was unproductive and nothing got resolved.
But in the TV show version of it, Roger's waiting around for an hour, and then he goes into this big empty hall room, and Barack Obama had just turned tail and left, and Roger was sitting there feeling like an idiot.
Yeah, and I cannot remember a time that Roger waited a half hour to see somebody unless it was his doctor.
And so I think this whole episode is getting more into the Roger's fixating on Obama. He made people. Did he ever tell you to? I mean, I know that Fox did say Barack Hussein Obama more than some of the other channels. Was that an edict? Was that what was the deal with that?
Not to me. It wasn't. I mean, if it went directly to the control room, I would have no way of knowing. But
right.
So he had the same middle name as the dictator of Iraq's.
Who we were actively seeking. I mean, there was a bit of irony there. But.
Sure, there was something there. No, Roger's fixation with Obama was more on his politics and policies, not his name.
There were a number of meetings where he'd be like, okay, all right, staff, you need to go after him and do this. And I got an idea. Let's just say that Michelle Obama might hate Americans and whatnot. And then all the staff guys, the toadies like you and the other people were around saying, oh, okay. What's your recollection on meetings like that? I mean, Roger wasn't shy about saying what he believed in life, but how true?
The meetings between Roger and his executives were usually business-related meetings. Mm-hmm. And did they get off track sometimes? Sure, they did. And was Roger, as I think you've mentioned in one of our previous talks, was Roger one of the funniest people in the world? He absolutely was, and he took no prisoners and had no political correctness about him.
Right.
He also knew the line between saying crazy, outrageous, funny things to his staff and expecting them to be instantly transmitted on the air. Mm-hmm. You were supposed to be smart enough to know that Roger could unload his opinions on you without instantly, writing the new script for a piece that was going to be on television.
Right. All right. I think that's a fair point. I mean, Roger riffed a lot, and if you took every single word that he said as gospel, you'd have a problem.
Riffed a lot, he ranted a lot, but that didn't mean that he was telling you put that on the screen. That's just not how he worked. And it's this flight of fancy that we're seeing on the episodes now, I think is going to get deeper, but sure doesn't reflect the reality that I remember.
Now, they had a scene with Roger and Rupert where Roger felt that Rupert was going to go too pro-Obama with the channel, and he basically said, I won't be any part of that. Now, I vaguely recall hearing about that meeting, and so my gut told me I don't know if it was as heated as they made it in that, but what do you recollect from the kind of Roger versus Rupert on editorial at Fox News?
Yeah, there was definitely a space between them on that. For all that they agreed on and for all that they shared conservative values and opinions, Rupert Murdoch's top priority was and is making money for his company, and if that meant having to have contact with a politician with whom he didn't agree, he was perfectly happy to do that. And he was going to do it whether Roger Ailes agreed or not. I think they reached what I would call a nervous compromise in that nobody expected Fox News to be an Obama cheerleader, but at the same time, nobody was going to tell Rupert Murdoch what to do with his free time or his free dollars.
Right. I do recall Roger telling me about a meeting with he and Rupert right around that time where he basically said, in Roger's recollection, in Roger's telling to me, where he told Rupert, it's like, it's your channel. You can do what you want. I'm just not going to be part of it if that's what's going on.
Yeah,
and I suspect he did that a couple times to Rupert over 20 years.
And I think it was the subtle application of pressure. There was none of this storming around and screaming at each other's stuff. But I think that each knew that they depended on the other. Rupert Murdoch was not at that time interested in running Fox News Channel day to day, and Roger Ailes knew that his paycheck and career descended from Rupert. So they each understood each other. If they didn't agree on everything, who does?
Right. Other plot points there was one other thing that. So they had they sent they sent Roger, Beth, and Zach to Warren, Ohio, where Roger was from. And of course, in this, Roger was like surprised that Warren, Ohio was blue collar and kind of poor and that, which seemed a little stretch to me. The other funny thing that and I had seen this in Gabe Sherman's book about how and I don't know what Roger's dad told him, but it was Roger telling the story of his dad saying, jump off the bunk bed, I'll catch you. Jump, no, Dad, I don't want to jump. And then he backed up, let Roger fall to the ground and told him that's a lesson for you. Don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that happened, but my dad told me the exact same story about him when he was a kid with a different ethnic accent than he was. So I always just thought that was a dad joke. Do you have any insight on that? I mean, Roger's brother is still alive. Maybe I'll give him a ring and ask him if that actually happened or if this is.
And please tell me what he says. Look, in many ways, Gabe Sherman's entire book hinges on that incident, because it gives you a foretaste of a guy who was paranoid, of a guy who didn't trust anyone, of a guy who would never, ever give confidence to anybody else except himself, because that's how I was raised, etc. The whole thing is, in a way, premised on that incident.
It's interesting notion. Okay. I do remember telling Roger about that book. I said, because we had to read it before it came out when we were kind of dealing with the response, and I was like, Roger, the book is so boring that if it wasn't about you or somebody I intimately know, I never would have finished it. I mean, I was in it, misquoted several times, but it was kind of ironic because the time at Fox was so crazy and so fun, and there were so many good stories there, and so few of them made it into so far this TV show, and certainly Gabe's book. Hey, let's talk a couple characters. Anybody standing out as particularly good or particularly bad from you, meaning that they linked up to the person that they are portraying?
Yeah, we might have mentioned it before. I think Sienna Miller has just gotten Beth Ailes down to a T. She somehow magically looks like her, talks like her, and even her way of walking and physical movements, to me at least, resemble the Beth Ailes that I knew. It's just.
I agree on that. Now, I don't know if anything that she said is true because, again, you've got so many scenes between Beth and Roger's gone, and Beth, I know, didn't talk to these people. So it's that part is fiction, but you're right. The mannerisms and look is kind of creepy.
I think Russell Crowe is trying to be like Roger. He lacks a couple of things: a Midwestern accent, and really the nuances that Roger Ailes had all his life. He could be mad as hell, but at the same time crack a joke. And there were just so many times when he pulled out a different persona from a place that you didn't know it even existed. And Crowe just does not have that ability.
Yeah, no, you're right. Roger's cheerfulness and his connection with people, and we talked in the last episode about how he could say such tough things to people, but because it was designed not to insult them but to help them, that people just fell in love with Roger. I mean, even political opponents. I mean, I remember he was friends with Rachel Maddow. He was friends with a lot of people on the left. I mean, he ran the media for George Bush Sr.'s campaign, and he ended up hiring the campaign manager of Michael Dukakis, who eventually became his personal lawyer, Susan Estridge. After and that was such a thing, whereas Crowe is just kind of grumpy conniving the whole way.
Yeah, but, it's two-dimensional as opposed to what Roger is, which was four.
Right. We mentioned this before. Roger's assistant, Judy Laterza, is probably the only other, to me, kind of weird character. She just was not, she was this super friendly, over-the-top, happy person, and they've turned her into steely-eyed personal assistant, which was just weird, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, in my entire 20 years there, Judy Laterza was never anything except kind, pleasant, and professional. I know that she saw a lot of things. I know that she heard a lot of things. She didn't give any of them away to me. And She certainly never gave me a steely-eyed look and told me to do something.
Right. Yeah, no, that's very true. And then the last one to mention, the Laurie Luhn character. So, look, they're going to spend a whole lot of time between Roger and Laurie Luhn, who he was alleged to have had an affair with. This is the second time that they've shown her like freaking out with narcotics, with falling on the floor and going through that. Not something I knew. I knew Laurie had some real kind of emotional and psychological troubles in life. I know that she sued Showtime for, I don't know, like $1 billion when this came out, because she thought that they were going to make her look bad. So they didn't make her look like she was procuring women, but they did turn her into a druggie.
A lawsuit she has since dropped, but
she dropped that. Yeah. And so we'll see where they go with that. I sense that this is the turn on all of this, where they're just going to devolve into kind of everybody's a horrible person here, with the exception of the PR guy who leaked out so much stuff to the book that he's probably, what's the actor? I forgot him last time. Seth MacFarlane. I still got a feeling I know where that's going, and it's depressing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've got to have somebody that, as it were, combats Roger. And then they've got to have somebody that regrets what he's been part of and tries to make amends.
Right. You kind of also have to have, just in a TV show, a likable person.
They don't
I'm not quite sure who that is. I mean, I watch The Sopranos, and they make a murdering mobster be great. In fact, they made a lot of murdering mobsters be cool guys that you want to hang out with. So many shows, you watch The Wire, and it's like, hey, these murdering drug dealers are cool guys. I don't think I'd really want to hang out with anybody in this version of Fox, and that's. I
mean, if you're looking for a likable character, keep looking.
And it won't be you and me. Okay, so is there anything else on this episode that you want to talk about? I have a couple just Fox questions for you afterwards, but
I think, Ken, that at the very end of the episode, Roger gives this speech in Warren, Ohio. Apparently he's dedicating something or contributing something. And the speech is so ham-handed and that I just don't think Roger said these words. I mean, again, he was probably disappointed in the Warren, Ohio that addressed them and welcomed them back, especially with his son in tow. He gave a flag and love the country speech, and I guess it's supposed to have gotten a good reaction. But of course, the way it's shot is all these people that don't have jobs and are kind of hungry for any kind of good news at all are just happy to applaud because the rich guy came back to Warren.
Right. Interesting. I don't recall kind of anything from that. I knew he went back a few times. He gave a bunch of money to his alma mater and some of those other things, but I don't remember the him versus Rubes where they cheered him.
I mean, I as I recall it, he gave quite a significant amount of money to Ohio University, which he attended, for a broadcast newsroom, and his name has since been taken off.
Yes, I remember. It was about a week after the allegations came out of the sexual harassment stuff that they chiseled his name off the top of the bill. Did they give the money back? I don't know. If I give a college millions of dollars and they chisel my name off after I'm a bad person, they're giving that money back.
Yeah, I didn't get any of it if they did.
Okay, this is just out of the random blue. There was a rumor going around the building that when Geraldo Rivera, and I didn't tell you we were going to talk about this, when Geraldo Rivera first showed up in Iraq, in the middle of the Iraq War, at the beginning of the Iraq War. So he showed up, and like on day 2, somebody was shooting at him. And there was always the rumor that it was like, come on, it was his brother or something. I mean, Geraldo did like to make TV good. Was that ever serious? Was there any? I don't know. What can you tell me on that, if anything?
I can't tell you anything you don't already know. The rumors were certainly there. Somebody thought that Geraldo's brother was firing at least rounds. Maybe they weren't real bullets, but firing so that the noise was on the videotape, and it looked like Geraldo was cheating death once again.
I'm not accusing him of that, but
no. I mean, that was a rumor.
But was that a serious question? I mean, were you guys like, did you have a meeting on that and be like, is Geraldo shooting at himself, or did you?
No. look, it didn't influence the story except that it heightened the drama of it. And
yeah, but you would have fired him if you knew that his brother was off camera shooting.
had there been sufficient evidence that he had staged this, then yeah, I think there would have been consequences. But I had no evidence, and
Right.
to the best of my knowledge, nobody else did either.
Now, since we're on Geraldo then, who was an embedded reporter, later had a camera and he was drawing a map in the sand of kind of roughly where they were, and there was a firefight that they were going through, and the military got upset because that violated the rules of being embedded. And do you recall much of and I know that Roger got in some heated conversations with some of the Pentagon at that point, because Roger was always pretty quick to defend himself.
That was earlier. That was an earlier war. That was Afghanistan, not Iraq. But yeah,
okay.
It was Geraldo who claimed to be in Tora Bora, which is the famous place where, had the U.S. forces been able to penetrate that far that quickly, they would have probably captured Osama bin Laden. It turns out Geraldo wasn't in Tora Bora. And he was actually drawing lines in the sand that seemed to give anybody who was watching the positions of U.S. troops, and that certainly upset the Pentagon.
Now, Roger claimed and told me and us that he actually called up some of the commanders in the field there and got through and said, "Hey, did he really give you a problem? Was that?" And he said that their answer was, "Well, they knew where we were. They were shooting at us." So that wasn't a real surprise. And then when the Pentagon wanted to pull him and we were holding back, that Roger talked to, I don't know if it was Defense Department chief or who it was, saying, if you do that and hold a press conference that you're kicking Geraldo Rivera out of the country, I'm going to hold a press conference right after that and said that I talked to the commanders on the ground and they say you don't know what you're talking about and there never was any danger, and let's go ahead and do that. Were you around for that?
I wasn't part of that, but it sounds exactly like Roger, and that's the fog of war. The on the ground situation looks and feels very different from what it does thousands of miles away in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Last kind of points to go on. So this TV show is going to, if I can predict the future, which I'll try, it's going to then show that Fox becomes a political entity, and it's all about stopping Barack and doing, and not delivering the news but delivering the opinion. And that certainly was a time, and we've seen Fox News and we've seen CNN and MSNBC all kind of move from very news-based organizations with a few hours of the talk show hosts at the end of the day and maybe the morning show, to organizations that are now intermixing those two things, that are now, Fox is, I think, much more pro-Trump during the day, and CNN is much more anti-Trump during the day than they ever were that politicized in the past. And we kind of both lived through a period where, for instance, there was a few years at Fox where Bill O'Reilly, huge ratings, 8 p.m. show, was the number one show on cable news, and we were still number two, and CNN was beating that. Do you recall how did the news people, which you ran that division, how did they handle that kind of? And I have some ideas on it too, but you probably have better ones. How did they handle? Wow, we're now more known for our talker at 8 o'clock than we are for our news product.
Yeah, Ken, there was always tension between what was called the programming department, and that meant the shows that were on during prime time and tended to be more opinionated, and the news division, which, as you say, I was part of for a long time, and
which you ran,
and tried to keep us on the straight and narrow as far as facts and accuracy and story selection. Bill O'Reilly was, and as far as I know, still is, an opinionated person, and nothing's going to change that. There was a time when Bill said something or did something that really caused a lot of angst in the newsroom, and I heard about it from all the people that attended my meetings, and we ought to complain about him, we ought to get him off the air, we can't be part of this stuff. And I said, look, he's doing something different from what we do. He is paid to give his opinion. And by the way, his success is why you get a paycheck every week.
Right.
So let's work together instead of against each other.
Right.
And I guess I might have even paraphrased one of Roger's favorite sayings, don't piss inside the tent.
Right. Right. Interesting. All right. Last thing, little anecdote, unless you have some more to go over, and it's about that. I always found this, and I'll tell the first half of the story and let you tell the rest. The morning shows were also goofy and opinionated, and didn't really hold themselves to journalistic standards. And I remember being in the Mideast, but it's 6 a.m, you're getting ready for work, and they're cooking, and Edie Hill is they're yucking it up on there. I mean, it was a lot more fun show, and then until Gretchen came on, but we'll get to that later. But in the Mideast, I remember when I was working there for a few months, it's like that was in the middle of the day. That was literally like noon. And of course, everybody took a big lunch off. So for many people in the Mideast and in other parts of the world, that was almost kind of the prime time for Fox News as opposed to the early morning show. Do you remember getting pushback from a president of one country who was like couldn't figure out why this host on this Fox News channel was being the way she was being?
Yeah, I guess Edie had some things to say about Pakistan. One way or the other, a call got through from someone alleging to be representing the president of Pakistan. For some reason, Roger either didn't want to or wasn't able to take the call. It got down to my office. I picked up the phone, and here's this very unhappy president of Pakistan on the phone with me. And, even though I was a safe distance away, I certainly didn't want to insult him.
Or not getting a helicopter in Pakistan.
Yeah, we talked about things, and I think the morning show, said something to cool the atmosphere the next day or something like that. But we resolved it through peaceful means, as they like to say in diplomacy.
I remember the quote, "Who is this Edie Hill?" working its way through the bells.
Just what every anchor doesn't want to hear.
Okay, well that's it. That's it for me, John. You have anything else to add? Are you pretty good?
No, I'm hoping that they can pick up the pace a little bit. This was hard to get through.
It's like we were hoping that this was going to be a runaway success so that everybody would watch these YouTube videos. And now it's like, it kind of sucks. I hope it gets better.
I don't think the numbers are pointing in that direction right now.
But if you're watching it, I hope this is interesting to get the real side on this. We are a brand. This is like our 3rd video that we've ever done. So please hit the little like and follows and bells and all of those things below if you like it. That'll let you know when the next episode is coming up. We will shortly start to put other news and opinion pieces coming from LaCorte News on the YouTube channel as well as we move beyond this. But this is our first here. So thank you, and we will see you again in the future. All right, bye-bye. If you like this at all, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the little bell icon, and it'll let you know when the next one of these videos comes up. We're also involved in the comment section, so please ask questions or give your thoughts. We'd be happy to chat with you. Finally, LaCorte News is going to be putting out a lot more videos. We're taking a very critical look at the media because they often lie. And we would love to have you on board with this and giving us your thoughts as we grow this into something real. Thanks.